This is the Crowd Crux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Brigman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Brigman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Brigman. Today we are diving in deep into how this project, this tabletop game for Muffin Time, the random card game, ended up raising over $500,000, more than 11,000 backers that they've attracted on Kickstarter, how you as a tabletop game creator can replicate their success, and you can learn a little bit about what was happening behind the scenes, and kind of how I think crowdfunding can fit into the launch of more of a creative type of business. But it also is, I think, great even if you're doing a gadget, a gizmo, any other type of project category in Kickstarter, other types of games. A lot of good advice and tips. The one thing I want to say really quickly, I have one other announcement too, is that I apologize sometimes that we do not have, perfect conditions when we do these recordings. Like in an ideal world, I would love to have a studio where I could fly people to me and I could just have great interviews with them and get into the crux of all these different tips and advice and stuff. But just the world we live in, that's not always cost effective. So a lot of these interviews sometimes based on the internet connection is not always perfect. And that's an example of today's interview is that there's a little bit of a lag between me asking questions and the guest answering them. And there's also sometimes where the interview cuts out. I thank you so much for being willing to endure that with these shows. I try my best to have good audio quality and all these different things for you guys. So I appreciate you taking the time to deal with a little bit of that frustration in order to get to some of these nuggets of gold that I've worked to uncover with today's guest and asking them a little bit more, or trying to get some more pointed questions as the interview goes on. The other quick announcement that I wanted to make here is that, dude, if you're frustrated, man, with just listening to more and more podcasts, like it's awesome, you look forward to it, it's motivational, but at the same time, you're like, dude, Sal, just give me the goods. Like, tell me what to do. What is the step-by-step process? I've learned enough. I've tried to piece together blog articles online. I've tried to listen to these episodes, and I do get some nuggets here and there, but I just want the whole thing. Give me the whole shebang. I basically have a book out there that's available on Audible called The Kickstarter Launch Formula. That book is really highly acclaimed. Lots of people have really enjoyed it. A lot of good tips and advice when it comes to marketing, when it comes to pre-launch, when it comes to fulfillment, estimating costs, all these different things, the nuances of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, etc. This is really a labor of love for me, and one of the reasons that I decided to put together this book was, over so many different years, basically, of studying this, I realized I should put this all into one simple step-by-step guide, and that's what I did with the Kickstarter Launch Formula. So it's been doing really well, and if you're interested, you can check out a version on Audible and listen to it in the car or wherever you are. You can go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Just go to that link and you'll basically be able to download the Kickstarter launch formula. And if you want to, you can grab a 30-day free trial of Audible, and you'll also get a free copy, I believe, of the Kickstarter launch formula, which is a pretty great deal that they have going on. And I don't know how long that's going to last, so don't quote me on that one. But that's awesome. And the other thing about Audible I just kind of like is being able to turn your life into a learning center. I'm really big on that. And I don't read as much as I would like to. I try to always be reading something, but I notice that the more that I read and the more that I learn, particularly from a leadership standpoint, but also just my own skills, I tend to level up my business dramatically. What you don't know can literally hold you back from levels of success that you didn't even realize were possible, man. Like, you got to know what you're doing in order to be successful. Every once in a while, there's a major hit in these things, but at the end of the day, the more you study the foundations, the more you study, I would say just like the tried and true practices that go into getting funding, how do you do marketing, all this kind of stuff, the more successful that you will be over time. And I promise you, it'll be well worth your time. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we are speaking with a killer crowdfunding campaign that has raised more than $500,000 from over 11,000 backers for a tabletop game coming out of the UK, Muffin Time, the random card game. We have the social media and project manager here with us today who's going to give us a lot of great tips and insights into their campaign as well as what they've learned thus far on Kickstarter. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Nat. I really can look forward to talking to you. Welcome to the show.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Maybe we can get started by you telling me a little bit about sort of your role in the project and what it's been like thus far since being live on Kickstarter.
So from the very beginning, from the guys who created Muffin Time, from coming to Big Potato with the idea to actually hit and go on the Kickstarter launch to managing all of the questions and updates. I've been kind of the go-between between Big Potato and the Astuf creators.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to this, have you been working on this project? You've been working on them before? I know that they also launched, it looks like, another project, Bucket of Doom, on Kickstarter.
Yeah, so a Big Potato back in the day, before I worked for them, they launched one of their first games, A Bucket of Doom, on Kickstarter, which was much smaller and was only raised £15,000, but that was enough to kind of get Big Potato off the ground and becoming a big company.
And what year was this that they started with their first campaign?
That was 2014 was when Bucket of Doom came out.
And what sort of happened between like their first project and this one that recently launched, that caused them to want to come back to Kickstarter?
So Big Potato became kind of like a games publisher, publishing in their own right, and they decided not to use Kickstarter anymore because they're managing to make a name for themselves and just without it. And then the opportunity came to make Muffin Time. And the boys who created the Astuf series already had quite an online following. So it felt natural to help with the marketing to launch the game on Kickstarter as kind of like a marketing and as a way to gauge interest to see just how many people would be interested in a game by the Astuf creators.
And have you done a Kickstarter campaign before, or was this your first crowdfunding campaign?
Me, this is the first one I've ever done.
What's it been like? Like they come to you, they're like, hey, Nat, we want to do this Kickstarter campaign. We want to launch this thing and get funding. Like, what was your first thoughts about crowdfunding? Did you have to learn a bit at all, or?
I had to learn everything from the ground up. I'd never even backed anything on Kickstarter before. So it was a very, very, very steep learning curve going from deciding to do it on Kickstarter to actually kickstarting it.
What were some of the things that you discovered or that you learned kind of in that education process?
Planning is key. You have to plan every eventuality that you could possibly think of and get it all ready before you even think of launching, because it's so difficult to change things or add things once it's live and once people are questioning everything and asking loads of questions. So yeah, just plan for everything.
Where would you say your strength lies? Like, I know that you do the project management. You also mentioned social media. Where does your strength lie when it comes to, on the marketing side?
I think being able to work very closely with the creators who already have online presence is being good, because I've been able to use my professional marketing experience backed with their pre-made audience to kind of work out the best way to promote the game. We're getting the creators in this evening actually to do a live stream from the Big Potato office playing the game as part of the marketing as well, so their audience can see exactly how it's played, but it's through our personal platform.
That's pretty cool. Is it a Facebook live stream?
We're doing it on Twitch. Big Potato, we do a weekly live stream anyway, so we thought we may as well hijack it one week for a Muffin Time stream.
That's awesome. That's pretty dope. So maybe you can tell the listeners just a tiny bit about Muffin Time. Like, who is it for? What kind of game is it? What's it like? Can you give us an idea of that?
Yeah, sure. Muffin Time, people have described it like a crazy Uno. So instead of having to get rid of all your cards, you have to end your turn with exactly 10 cards in your hand. You do that through laying trap cards, which could be like if a player asks you the time, you take all their cards. You could do that by playing action cards, which can do absolutely anything. And you can also do that by playing counter cards. If someone tries to steal your cards, you can stop that. So people have described it like a bit like Exploding Kittens, in a way that it's like a very fast moving, very, very insane card game. And it's all of the jokes and all of the cards are based off the internet series Astuff Movie. So if you're a fan of Astuff, you will absolutely love the game. But we've done lots of playtesting with people who've never even heard of it, never seen it, and they love it as a game in its own right as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you sort of basically had this idea. I mean, you guys have been operating the company for a while. Now you're coming back to Kickstarter, but it seems like your results with this project compared to your first one, I mean, your first campaign raised like 15,000 pounds. This one is just like knocked out of the park, more than 10x of what your original was. It's almost like 50x, I'd say. What was like the difference there? Why do you think this one took off so much?
Definitely with the creators of the game, the Tom Skerr, Eddie and Elliot, they've all got their own big audience. We timed the launch of the Kickstarter with a video going up on their main YouTube channel, which has over 1 million subscribers. So actually, I can find out exactly how many subscribers they have. 1 second.
Millions. That's awesome.
It's loads.
So basically,
they've got 5.9 million subscribers.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
We timed it. They made that video, the Kickstarter video, go live on their YouTube channel at the same time we launched the Kickstarter. So we saw a huge boost in numbers and people coming across. And we can actually see that from all the backers, just about 50% of the backers came directly from YouTube.
Wow. So that was a really good, influencer strategy there.
Yeah.
When it comes to the YouTube video, like, I think YouTube is a little bit different from some of the other mediums out there. Like, what was the call to action? Was it a hard sell? Like, going back to Kickstarter campaign, get the early bird reward tiers? Was there like a limited quantity reward tier? Was there any kind of sales pitch there? Or was it just kind of like, hey, this is what we've made. If you're interested, you can check it out?
It was just an announcement, really. We were able to put in the description, but also utilize the I button feature, which is clickable on mobile. So we put it on the new video itself, but we also actually went back through all of the old videos that they'd released that have all the characters that are featured in the game, and we put the I button on those videos too. So if someone just stumbled across the old video, not knowing about the new Muffin Time video, they would see the pop-up and then be able to click through as well.
Okay, so it's really leveraging the entire community there of their channel.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like the launch of the campaign, I'm kind of looking at your KickTrack stats here. So it looks like you blew past your goal very quickly the first day, like raising almost 100,000, and then it started to slowly grow from there. You sort of had this rush or this influx of pledges, I guess, from YouTube. Were there any other things you were doing to get attention and traffic and to put a spotlight on the project?
We put out a press release through all our usual toy and board game facilities that we speak to, lots of the British tabletop sites, and a few other influencers that we knew, to let them know that it was about. We got a few articles here and there, but we're also relying quite heavily on the creators themselves tweeting every single day about it. Interacting with their audience members who have already pledged to kind of like celebrate the fact that they have. But also the things like the stream today that we're doing is another big push that we have planned for halfway through the campaign to give it a little boost in the middle, because there's always that dip in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Were you also seeing interest from like people on Kickstarter itself?
Yeah, we've seen, we were lucky enough to be featured as a project we love. So we've seen lots of people come through just from the like suggested page or the tabletop page itself. So I think we're lucky that the art style has been quite eye-catching. That's been enough to get people to click through and investigate. And then the actual video itself has then sealed the deal.
Yeah, I love the video. I think the comic kind of element goes really well hand in hand with just the artwork of the game. So you were working with this one big YouTube influencer, and that worked out really well for you. Did you work with any other influencers?
For the campaign, no, because it's their game that we're working with them on. Like they're the main focus of the campaign.
Okay, so like no, yeah, you didn't do any kind of other outreach when it came to like prepping the influencer for sharing this on their own platform. Like I think it's very personal. You know, my YouTube channel is super personal. Even with my own product launches, like I have to think very deliberately about that. Was there a thought process at all to making sure that this person, you know, shared the game in a way that's going to get sales, or was there any kind of thought process behind getting them to post it and doing it in like the right way that you want it, like as the marketer, you know?
We decided that they know their audience best and they know how to speak to their audience. So we kind of just gave them free rein to post about it how they like, create their own content about it. We've not really set any boundaries or given them any goals to hit because we feel like anything that we did tell them to do might feel too forced and not really resonate with their audience. So we kind of just said, go wild and do what you want.
Mm. One of the takeaways it looks like that you had from running the project is that you can't please everyone. What did you mean by that exactly?
So a lot of people were unhappy that we hadn't revealed all the stretch goals and the stretch goal numbers for what they were, and the guys who created the game were getting really like worried and upset because they didn't want to give a bad impression or have people who were upset. But when we actually looked at the numbers, the amount of people backed versus the amount of people who were commenting, it really was just a tiny, like 3% of people who backed were a bit annoyed. So you can't please that small amount of people because you're always going to have people who grumble, who aren't happy.
Mm. Especially when you have 11,000, more than 11,000 people. Obviously, you're going to have some people that just aren't happy with the way that you have creative choices or strategies that you have or things that you choose to make with your project. So, the more people you have, obviously, the more you're going to have of that, I think.
Exactly.
When putting together this project, this being your first campaign, what did it feel like for you to see in the first few days, that it was actually starting to take off? What did that feel like for you?
It was really, really crazy. As soon as we launched, there are a few of us in the office. As soon as we saw the numbers rising, we were like, "Oh my god, this is actually a thing. This is going. This is kicking off." And we all got beers and we stood around the laptop and just like watched the numbers tick up and then cheered when we hit the goal. And then when we saw it hit the goal, it just kept going and going. And all the like anxiety and fears that the campaign wouldn't do what we wanted it to do just like melted away. And then the new anxiety of like, oh god, it's doing really well, we have to make sure that we completely smash it with all the rewards and everything kind of started to seep in. So there was joy, but then it was like, oh no, we need to really nail this.
You'd seen, I imagine, other people be successful with crowdfunding campaigns. Had you seen people from the UK? Like, what is the reception like in London when it comes to tabletops and like crowdfunding? Is it as big as here? I'm not sure, honestly.
In the UK, no, it's not as much as a thing. Like most of the big campaigns that all come out from the US. There's the odd like small things that happen, but it doesn't really have as much of a drive behind it, but that's kind of been a bit counterbalanced by the audience themselves of our influencers, because they've got lots and lots of UK fans. So what we had actually seen is that most of the backers that we've got are new backers to Kickstarter. So the pull of the influencer has helped bring in people to back from Kickstarter, especially new people from the UK, which has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, I was looking here. It looks like 2,000 of these people are coming from the UK. You got a bunch from France, Canada, Germany. Like people around the world are discovering this game, and really, I think, coming to know also your artwork and like these different things. So that's kind of inspiring. I mean, you have a worldwide audience there.
Yeah, it's been really great. We've actually seen a correlation between the Asta audience stats on YouTube with the backers on Kickstarter. So it's seen that it's really like translated across with the audience.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. When you're talking about running a project, one of the other takeaways you sent over was that you feel as though time goes slowly when you're running a campaign. What did you mean by that?
Well, a week after we launched, it felt like it had been a whole entire month. It didn't feel like it was just a week, because there's so many things you need to check on every day. You need to check on all the comments, check on all the messages, see if you need to do an update, see how the numbers are going for the next reward. You're constantly planning and preparing and getting ready for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So there's lots to do in a very short amount of space. So it just feels like it's taking a long time. Like yesterday, the campaign had been live for 2 weeks, and it feels like 2 years. Like, I can't believe we've got another 2 weeks left. Like, we're just about to hit our final stretch goal. So now in the final 2 weeks, we're having to investigate like costs and ideas for possibly one or two more, just because we know we've got 2 more weeks to get through.
Looking at your Big Potato Games website, there are a bunch of other games you have here, like Blockbuster, which is a movie party game. How does a launch here on Kickstarter differ from what you've been doing privately, sort of on your own site with Big Potato Games?
So a lot of the things that we do, we work with retailers, so they kind of say like the kind of stuff that they're looking for, and then we'll come up with ideas, or we're approached by licenses, or we approach licenses to come up with ideas. So what we do for Big Potato comes for like all kinds of things, all kinds of backgrounds, focusing on being creative, but also focusing on what we know is going to work within the market and what we are seeing with trends and everything. And we've actually seen a trend that this kind of party game that Muffin Time is supposedly supposed to not be as popular as like family games coming up in the future. So Muffin Time again was a bit of a risk, because in the industry it's seen that like things like Cards Against Humanity and Exploding Kittens are having a downward trend. So launching it on Kickstarter helps with the marketing for that and seeing that there is a trend. So then when we take Muffin Time to retailers, we've got all this information to back it up and be like, look, it is popular, it will sell.
Do you find there's any difference between doing the marketing for a crowdfunding campaign versus doing it on your own website?
We kind of, because we keep Big Potato has quite like a distinct tone of voice in everything we do. We're kind of lighthearted and self-deprecating. Wanted to find a way to keep the Kickstarter marketing kind of in tone with that and keeping in line with it. So we've kept it mostly on our social media, rather than putting too much on our website or anything else. We've not even sent a newsletter for it, because we're trying to make sure that the fans of the Asta movie themselves feel like they're put first, because we are putting them first. It's not a Big Potato game, it's an Asta movie game.
When it came to the preparation for the launch, did you do anything like gather an email list, or did you lean off of the existing email list that you have? Like, did you announce to your core following that way?
We literally didn't really say anything about it until like launch day. We And when we shared the campaign for the first time, it was just like a complete surprise to a lot of people.
What's this potato club that I see on your site?
So the Potato Club is it's our mailing list, but it's also the guarantee that like with all of our games, we if you lose a part or like you rip a part of it, we'll send you that part for free to make sure that you don't have to buy a whole new entire game.
Okay. What are you most passionate about when it comes to marketing? Like when it comes to getting this game out there in front of more and more eyes, like what are you most passionate about with your job?
I feel like the best feeling is when you see someone who had no idea that this thing existed, discovering it because of something you posted and just being like super, super exciting. You see them share it with all their friends and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this existed. I can't wait to have this. That kind of genuine excitement from people just is so infectious and so great to see that like they're really receiving it well.
Mm-hmm. For other people out there that are thinking of maybe doing a crowdfunding campaign, what advice do you have for them?
Definitely look at as many other different campaigns as you can to see what they're doing. Even if it's a campaign nothing to do with yours, there's lots of tips and tricks that you can find just by looking at really, really random campaigns. Everyone does it differently. Some things you will see you should definitely not do that doesn't translate very well, and some things you'll be like, yeah, that would really work for my campaign. So do a whole load of research. And also maybe something that I would have liked to have done before I started is actually back stuff on Kickstarter so you know what it feels like to be on the other end of it and you know the kind of experience that you might want to get.
So one of the things you mentioned there was knowing what you should versus should not do, and that was part of your research looking at these different projects. What's one example of that you discovered?
There was this really awesome, randomly, a shoe Kickstarter that we saw that they had like this super awesome video and they used lots of infographics below to kind of explain everything. And we definitely decided that visually explaining things made it so much more easy than having to read through a bunch of text. So like as many like visual clues as you can like really helps people understand exactly what they're getting.
What do you mean exactly by visuals? Like, do you mean like images of the game or?
So even if we've got text on our campaign, we've kind of illustrated it and like popped it out with like little arrows to kind of help people understand all the different things.
I'm seeing here like you also have some moving elements on the page, it looks like.
Yes. You can put GIFs and videos in, and the GIFs are quite eye-catching, we found. So they really help like break up the big chunks when people are scrolling through and looking at your campaign.
When you were looking at some of the other projects out there that are in the tabletop niche, what's another like tip or a trick that you came across that you incorporated in your own project?
Keep it simple, because there were so many campaigns that we looked at, and as a consumer, they just looked so confusing. There was so many different layers to the reward systems and the little social media trick things that you have to do, like follow this company 10 times and we'll release a new thing. It just, we found that it seemed to just detract from the thing that's the most important thing, like the game itself. Like, yes, it's good to build community. Yes, it's good to build your socials, but the most important thing is the game and showing that it's a good game.
I'm looking here at your campaign and it looks like, so you've already unlocked a bunch of different stretch goals. So we got like the $75,000 or $91,000 level where you get 10 brand new Kickstarter exclusive cards to the game, like a baby with a gun or the whole. And you have like 240,000 where there's you get basically new holographic cards, which are kind of cool and fancy looking. The Stegosaurus, I like trains, doing internet. What's there's like one more stretch goal I think that you have that is left to be unlocked. What is that one?
That is the Muffin plush, which we're really excited about, and it kind of set the internet on fire when we revealed that was what it was going to be, because the Muffin is such an important character, and everyone was so excited to hear that they could get their hands on a plush. But because it is the most expensive thing to make, we've had to spend a while sourcing it and getting samples. We're only making that available to people who have the bestest and the bestest friend option.
When you say stretch goal, just because everyone might not be clear what that is, does that mean that everyone who backs it gets this like extra bonus kind of, or how does that work?
So we've split our rewards into a few different sections. There's the retail version, which doesn't have any of the Kickstarter exclusives. And then the next level up is the Kickstarter one, which is just the game, but then all the applicable stretch goals. And then the next one is the Kickstarter one with one of the expansions. And then the bestest one is the Kickstarter one with 2 expansions, and you get all the stretch goals, including the Muffin plush. So the Muffin plush is only available to the bestest one and the bestest friend one, which is basically just you get 2 of everything.
Oh, okay. So it's basically the stretch goals are by reward tier, the way you've set it up sort of here. So make sure to read the...
Yeah, so we try to put visual clues in the actual campaign bit itself by having a little flash next to the Muffin saying like it's only available with this option.
Oh, okay.
And in the copy itself, by the rewards, we were careful to say all applicable stretch goals, so that people know that like not every single stretch goal would be for that tier.
Okay, understood. Awesome. Very cool. Where would you like people to go to check out and learn a little bit more about your projects?
Straight to Kickstarter, back it.
Okay, so
just
for those that
search Muffin Time and it will be there.
Okay, so Muffin Time, search that on Kickstarter and you can learn a little bit more about this. You guys have 15 days to go. It looks like you're nearing towards your next stretch goal as well, which is pretty exciting here. I think you're definitely going to hit it based on just your trajectory here. So that'd be a really cool thing. Any other things, any other announcements that you have coming out?
No, basically there's the live stream tonight, which we'll also put up a highlights reel of for people who can't make it to watch. And the next episode in the Astiv series that the game is based off will also be launching hopefully tomorrow as well, which will be really exciting. And hopefully those few people who haven't known about Muffin Time yet will know about it from that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing some advice and tips that you have, and also this card game, which it's literally blowing up and it's doing really well, I think, for Big Potato Games. My final question for you is, if you go back in time and talk to yourself when you were just starting and you hadn't done a crowdfunding campaign yet, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how this thing's going to go. What's a final thing you'd want to leave with yourself? It could be a word of encouragement. It could be a final tip. It could be just, some reassurance. What's a final thing? We can sort of end on that note.
I think I'd tell myself to stop worrying so much. Just believe in the campaign.
Well said. Thank you for coming on the show, and I look forward to watching the rest of your success.
No worries. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Let me tell you about our latest sponsor, SendPro Online by Pitney Bowes. Shipping can be complex. Things can get really confusing really fast. With SendPro Online, it's easy to save time and money no matter what you send, from letters and packages to overnights and flats. You can easily compare USPS, UPS, and FedEx in an all-in-one online tool. You can print shipping labels and stamps directly from your printer. You can even track all of your shipments and get email notifications when they've arrived. SendPro Online is only $14.99 a month, and listeners can get a free 30-day trial when you visit pb.com/crowdcrux. That's pb.com/crowdcrux. Experience the convenience of SendPro Online for yourself when you sign up for a free 30-day trial. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Brigman. If you have not yet, go and take a look at the other episodes we got out there on this podcast. Take a second to give me a rating and review on iTunes. You can also check out some of my content on YouTube. Just Google my name, Salvador Brigman, and it will come up with my YouTube channel, or actually, put it into YouTube. I also have the blog, obviously, crowdcrux.com, which is sort of like the hub of all of my content, and that has a great newsletter there as well. I recommend getting on my weekly newsletter, where I send out crowdfunding tips, sometimes every other week depending on what I got on. But the other thing I want to mention here is that if you want to sort of get a one-on-one access to me, and you take all of the knowledge and the things that I've experienced over the last 6 or 7 years since getting into this industry, and apply this to your project, and basically have an expert look over your campaign, look over your launch strategy, give you advice, tell you about some of the stuff you might be missing out on, the resources, give you the inside scoop on some of these service providers in this industry, as well as I can tell a little bit about some of my own services and how it can help your project. This is an hour-long intensive coaching call, which you can schedule with me, where we'll go step by step through your entire, what you've been doing up until now. Doesn't matter what stage you're launching in, the prototype, if you're now starting to get into the pre-launch, if you're already live, you can rest assured by the end of this call, you're going to feel way more confident about your efforts when it comes to crowdfunding. And in addition, you're going to have a lot of practical advice and things that you can implement today in order to either nudge you towards a better direction, or to raise even more money when it comes to your crowdfunding campaign. If that sounds interesting to you and you're ready to invest in that, you can go to crowdcrux.com/coaching. That is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. And you can schedule a one-on-one coaching call with me, and we can get that squared away ASAP. Just give me a little bit of information about you, your goals, how much you're looking to raise, what type of category, tell me a little bit about your product, these different things, so you can make the best use of the time on the call, and I can really bring my A game to that. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast episode. I hope you took a ton of stuff away. Again, thank you so much for also bearing with me when it came to the audio, because there was a bit of a lag there, I noticed, and I always hate that, obviously, but I think it was worth it, because I wanted to get to some of the things that were happening behind the scenes of this project. My biggest takeaway was that partnering with an influencer, like a YouTuber or whoever is an influencer in your space, can literally make the difference between success and failure in some types of projects and in some cases. I hope you also had some more takeaways other than that. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, and I will see you next time.